morning and welcome everybody. I will call to order the Brevard City Council regular meeting of Monday, August 18th. And I want to welcome everybody who is here in person. It is always great to see you. And everybody that is watching us on the live stream. I want to go ahead and introduce the people sitting up here. To my far right is our city attorney, Mac McKellar. Next to Mac is City Councilman Lauren Wise. Next to Lauren is City Councilwoman Pamela Holder. Next to Pamela is City Councilman Mac Morrow. I'm Mayor Maureen Kopoloff. On my immediate left is our Deputy City Clerk, who is filling in for Denise, Selena Coffey. Next to Selena is Mayor Pro Tem and City Councilman Gary Daniel. Next to Gary is City Councilman Aaron Baker, and next to Aaron is our City Manager, Wilson Hooper. With this, I would like to ask Pastor Ali Dongle from the Brevard Wesleyan Church to please come up to the microphone, Pastor Ali, and please, we're very pleased to have you come and give the invocation tonight.
Thank you. I put my phone down by Mac, so if it goes off.
I'll smack you.
Oh, let's pray. Heavenly Father, I know that in any kind of business meeting, there are always decisions that are easy and there are some that are hard. And so I just pray that you will help us to live and speak the ideals that are important to you, that this would be a place where we can find fairness and where we can find compassion, where we can find wisdom. And I just pray for the men and women who are here that you would just help them to have thought through and arrive at the closest they can to being able to say that they did their best to come out with the best decision when they make decisions tonight. And I just pray for each of the ones, men and women, our council members here tonight, because to be here means that they are not allowed to be somewhere else, which could involve being with family and others that are important to them. So I just pray that you would be with those they have left for a few minutes. And I just thank them for their families. Just pray that you would be with them in a special way also. We thank you for your goodness in our lives, each one personally, for this city, Brevard, and what you have done through the years and what it's meant to so many people and the ones that travel through. So I just pray that we will be gracious and thankful for all that we have. And I just pray your blessing on this meeting tonight and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Pastor Ali, would you tell us a little bit about the Brevard Wesleyan Church?
We're right across from Ingalls. That means it's easy to eat and it's easy to watch the fireworks right over the hill, except they're trimming the trees. We're going to ask if they would trim them all down about 10 more feet on the top so we could see everything better. Two services, one at 9, one at 11:15, the first traditional, the second contemporary, and a good congregation. And I think it's pretty true. Most of the congregations here have roots that go back a ways. And so there is a lot of history in our church as well.
Well, we are just so glad that you are here, part of our Brevard family, and for everything that you and your congregation bring to our community.
I appreciate that. And I have to tell you this. Wilson Hooper looks just like an assistant pastor I had when I was in San Diego. And he seems to be an immaculate dresser, which means to me that his socks are probably not solid. They have design on them.
Oh,
And,
all right, Wilson, show them off.
Disappointed.
But I will tell you,
I know, see there? Okay, all right.
All right,
That's
all
enough,
right,
yeah.
let's get this meeting back under control. All right.
thing that's very short. He did a great Michael Jackson impression, so I don't know if you can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Ali.
Yeah.
All right, if everyone would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, honor, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Miss Mayor, all members are present, full quorum.
Okay. Council members, you have the draft agenda. Do I have any modifications to the agenda?
I'd like to make one, if I may. I'd like to suggest that we move item M3 to the consent agenda.
Okay. And item 3 is the resolution directing the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of petition for contiguous annexation on Cashers Valley Road. All right. All right. Any other modifications? Council, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as modified?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Council, you've got the draft minutes of the August 4th, 2025 regular meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. All right, we are going to move on to public comments. The public is invited to speak during public comment at this time on any topic unless it is a public hearing item on this agenda, and we have no public hearings this evening. Right. Anyone who wants to speak must register with the city clerk, which is what this sign-up sheet is. When it is your turn, step to the podium in front of city council. State your name and address clearly. Limit comments to 3 minutes or less and avoid repetition. When you have 30 seconds left, I will give you a warning. And if you reach the 3-minute limit, please finish your sentence when I tell you you're at time and then sit down. Direct comments to the full council, not to an individual council member or to staff. I will call people up in the order in which you signed up. Our first speaker tonight is Commissioner Larry Chapman from our Transylvania Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate being here. Larry Chapman, I live on Williamson Creek Road, Pisgah Forest, but I do own property and a house in the city of Brevard. Normally, Miss Mayor, I don't pay much attention to social media because I know it's a lot of people sitting around at midnight in their underwear, keyboard warriors. And Lord knows you and us and all of us have probably been attacked many, many times. But this issue was brought to my attention by a citizen, and I think it needs to be discussed here or at least brought forward. This has to do with a thread on social media, and it started out talking about Rosamond High School, the football field, and things that are going on up there, which is a lot of controversy on spending that money versus. But when you get down to the end of the thread, there was a comment made by the citizen. And this citizen blatantly accused the county manager of corruption. Well, so be that, you know, that's a citizen's thing. But what brings me here is right after that statement by that citizen, there was a sitting city council member that 100% agreed. Now, I don't know, we have enough issues between our boards on things, but this does not go very well between our board and looking forward there to accuse the county manager of corruption. Incompetence or whatever is one thing, but to outright accuse the sitting county manager as corruption is just a little above the board. So I would just like to bring that forward, and I'll be glad to share the name of that council person. You don't like me mentioning it here, but it's really not doing anything for relationships between the city and the county to accuse our county manager of corruption. And I hope that's just one keyboard warrior sitting around behind a keyboard voicing opinion. But please, Ms. Mayor, I'll give you more details if you need it. Mayor Pro Tem, I think this needs to be discussed and find out, does this board feel that way about our county manager? If so, we need to address that in a separate meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Chapman. All right. Moving on, our next speaker is Andrew Riddle.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Riddle. I live in neighboring Flat Rock, North Carolina. I'm a native of that area and am very excited to be in Brevard this evening. I want to thank you, the council members, for doing what you do and the time that you spend here, and for the prayer that was given before. Very nice. Mayor Kopoloff, thank you for the time you've spent with us and our team. And Wilson Hooper, we've you know, we've got a lot of history going back and forth trying to get things figured out. And also Paul Ray at the planning department and the building department. I am, again, Andrew Riddle, and I represent 277 North Broad Street Partners, which is building and constructing the UNC Health Party facility at 277 North Broad Street. Paul Ray in the planning department and the building, at the planning department and the building inspectors, I just can't say enough good things about working with those folks. I'm excited because Party is looking to move into that facility in January. I'm excited to bring health care to Transylvania County and urban renewal. This has been a tough job from the start. Social media didn't help. But you got to look beyond that, and you got to back up and look at the big picture. And that enabled us to progress through some valleys to get that project started. And I wanted to present something tonight, and if I can please approach, if I'm able, Mayor, to hand a few copies out to the council members.
Go ahead, Mr. Riddle.
Thank you.
Keep in mind, you only have 1 minute left.
If you'll give them to Selena, she'll hand them out the rest of the way, Andrew.
Yeah,
so
that'd be
it's your
great.
time.
1 minute, here we go.
Yeah.
In May of this year, my team and I approached the mayor as well as Wilson and asked for approximately $279,000 in incentives for enhancing items within the city such as sidewalks, Methodist Drive, doing improvements that benefit far beyond UNC Health Part E, but these benefits
30 seconds.
help the citizens of Transylvania County. I'm asking that you enable Wilson Hooper to continue to work with us in these incentives through General Statute 160A-309 or 160A-499. Please give him the help and support that he can help this development team that wants to do further work in Transylvania County. This will further entice other developers to bring jobs and urban renewal to the city of Brevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riddle. Our next speaker is Rodney Locks.
Council, my name is Rodney Locks. I live at 187 South Rice Street. I usually come before you to say people cannot afford to live in Brevard. I got my property tax bill. You know, if you keep raising property taxes, it's not sustainable. I watched you promote and build affordable housing. I'd like you to make sure that the prices are reasonable so that people can rent and buy those places that you're building. I just want to remind you that tourism may be good, but tourists don't pay property tax. And finally, the Brevard hustle is not sustainable. Anybody who's doing the hustle knows it's not good for business, it's not good for the person, it's especially not good for families. To make a long story short, we need higher paying jobs to afford to live in Brevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locks. Our next speaker is Doug Powell.
Would you like to see my socks? That's actually
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. We are only 30 days to Constitution Day and the kickoff of Constitution Week. and 319 days to this nation's 250th anniversary. In anticipation of Constitution Day on September 17th, I'd like to read part of a speech made at the Constitutional Convention on June 28, 1787 by Benjamin Franklin, considered one of our least religious founding fathers. At the time, political agendas and factions divided the convention, and many were ready to leave in disgust. Dr. Franklin was the oldest man in the room at 81 and rarely spoke. When he rose, he said in part, "In this situation of this assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth, and scarce able to distinguish it when presented to us, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hitherto once thought of humbly applying to the Father of lights to illuminate our understandings? In the beginnings of the contest with Great Britain, when we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayer in this room for the divine protection. Our prayers, sir, were heard, and they were graciously answered. All of us who were engaged in this struggle must have observed frequent instances of a superintending providence in our favor. And have we now forgotten that powerful friend? Or do we imagine that we no longer need his assistance? I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convinced proofs I see of this truth, that God governs in the affairs of man. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it probable that an empire can rise without its aid, his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build, they labor in vain that build it. I firmly believe this, and I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. We shall be divided by our little partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and a byword down to future ages. And what is worse, mankind may hereafter, from this unfortunate instance, despair of establishing governments by human wisdom, and leave it to chance, war, and conquest. I therefore beg leave to move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven
30 seconds.
and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service. This speech in its entirety included 14 Bible passages or references, all done by Benjamin Franklin's memory. Even one of our least religious founding fathers knew that the only way for our leaders to come to agreement and build anything, including this nation, was to first
Time,
humble
Mr.
themselves
Powell.
before God, as our invocation tonight emphasized. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jay Veal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to come back and talk. I think I closed out my chat 2 weeks ago with, well, you know, I advise you that the bottom 200 feet of the Bracken Trail blocked off access to 6 pieces of property a year and 2 months ago. And I closed my chat with you guys 2 weeks ago with, well, did anybody do anything? And I sort of kind of got worked up because I'm getting the same look from you guys today that I did then, which is really perplexing. Like Mr. Baker, I read on his website, I think he's running for re-election, and when you read his website, he would be the guy that would dig into this. I'm pretty sure you have an oath of office that would suggest that maybe you should care. I had a nice sit down with Mr. Morrow 2 days after the last meeting, and my request to you tonight is maybe you should ask him how that conversation went, and why does this guy keep coming back with this problem? Short of Mr. Morrow, I've had more conversations with Mr. Hooper than anyone else. Those conversations were as recent as a year ago, last May, but he also, I think, has a better knowledge of the nuances of what's going on here. When I first started, I got like, well, why did the council in 2008 vote to block off access to people's property? And the answer is they didn't. The council in 2008 voted to establish a steering committee that Mr. Morrow was chairman of to come up with a plan for Bracken Preserve. And they voted to institute an action to adversely condemn a right-of-way across this property that was unnecessary and not needed because there was already a road. But the purpose of this was to construct and improve a road. That's in all of the court documents. It's in all the public notices. That's what anybody knew. That's what was sent to the property owners. Construct and improve a road for all pedestrian and vehicular travel. So ask yourself, why am I here? Because instead of constructing and improving a road, the first thing that happened was...
30 seconds.
Would it be okay if I pass these out while I'm doing it?
Give them to the clerk, please.
How many do you need? Here, you can have one. Well, let's see what that is. So, I'm here because the first thing that y'all did was build a handicap parking place in the middle of the road, then a trail kiosk blocking the road, and then put boulders in the middle of the road to control erosion. Planted trees, put a couple of picnic tables, and 2 more trail signs.
Time, Mr. Beal.
And then when you built the trail, it blocked off complete access to 6 pieces of property.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. You're out of time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Harvey Sankey.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name's Harvey Sankey, 51 Lake House Trail. And I'd like a little clarification tonight. And that involves the eyesore that is here in the city of Brevard. You look behind that courthouse, every time I drive up Broad, I see that eyesore up there, and nothing has been done about it. It's terrible. And I would say everybody in here would agree it's an eyesore, all right? City ordinance says, every owner, occupant, agent, or person in control of property shall cut down and remove from the property all weeds, grass, vines, and other growth which endangers the property or any other property. I'm going to refer to section 38, 2 here, and it says any growth or overgrowth of grass, weeds, or other vegetation that is greater than 18 inches on the average, or any accumulation of dead weeds, grass, brush, or undergrowth. This section shall not apply to lots that are natural area lots unless the lot is found in violation of subsection 32(1). Natural area lots are lots that have never been cleared in anticipation of development. Now, this lot is going to be used to develop something, hotel, whatever it is. It's been, this lot has maintained this eyesore for about 4 years. Why hasn't anything been done? Now, let me talk to you about 38(1), which is an exception to a natural lot. Any condition which constitutes a breeding ground or harbor for rats, mosquitoes, harmful insects, or other pests. Okay, what are other pests? Now, I know some of you thinking, you know, I'm one of them, but a plant, an animal, or micro organism that has a negative effect on humans. It can be unwanted plant, weed, insect, spider, mite, bird, fish, rodent.
30 seconds, Mr. Sankey.
I hear you. Or deer. Has anybody been to that property to make sure that this has any harmful pests in that property? And if it does, it should be removed. Please state to us that it has been looked at and that it has been deemed okay or not. And if it hasn't, take care of it.
Thank you, Mr. Sankey. Time.
I adjusted my hearing aids since our last meeting, and I heard the 30-second today.
Thank you, Harvey. All right, and that is everybody that signed up for public speaking. All right, we'll move on with our agenda. Here. All right. All right, we have no public hearings, so we will move on to the consent and information agenda. The following items are on it. 1, the City of Brevard Annual Tax Collection Settlement Report. 2, Tax Settlement Report July 2025. 3, Ordinance declaring multiple street closures, the annual Brevard Plein Air Festival and Assault on the Carolinas, September 13th, 2025. 4, award of bank financing for the purchase of 3 vehicles. 5, approval of the downtown mural application, Earth Mountain Bicycle. 6, the HCA settlement agreement. And what will be number 7, which we moved from new business, the resolution directing the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of a petition for contiguous annexation, city-owned property on Cashers Valley Road. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Consent is approved. All right, we will move on to unfinished business. Our first item is the proposed amendment to the City of Brevard traffic schedule, no parking on Railroad Avenue and Galloway Street. And Mr. Manager, who's presenting this?
Well, it was going to be Tom, but he's on vacation today, so I'll pick up. If you'll recall, we held a hearing last meeting on staff's recommendation that we prohibit on-street parking on Railroad Avenue in order to maintain access for our emergency vehicles. And there was some question from the board about whether we could move the rocks that are there near the Airstream trailer onto the property owner's property in order to preserve some of that. I'm going to call it off-street parking, but it would essentially be parallel parking on the street there. And I volunteered to come back with some information about that. So our answer is that if the parking were on her property, it would need to be improved. And what that means is it would need to be paved, there would need to be curbing, there'd need to be some other improvements made to that property in order for it to be parking that complies with the requirements of our code. And that there's not enough room in the right-of-way for us to put that parking in the property that we control. And so although that would be a good solution, there are some legal obstacles for that. But both our police and fire have noticed that at certain times there is a condition there where folks can only fit through the street one car at a time, and obviously that could have significant impacts if it happened during an emergency response. And that is also the reason why we've asked for you to ban parking on Galloway Street, because that's a narrow residential street that our emergency vehicles sometimes use to get from the fire station over here to Probart Street, and having cars parked along that street would inhibit their access as well. And so I'm asking that you all consider adding these 2 streets to the no parking section of the traffic schedule. And Paul and Aaron and I will do our best to answer any additional follow-up questions that you have.
Council, do I have a motion to approve the amendment with the proposed no parking areas?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll open it for discussion. Mr. Morrow.
And I'm glad to see the city's kicked off as well, the curb installation on Railroad as well, and I think that will help. So move this on.
Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, I think one of the things too that's been brought to the Downtown Master Plan Committee at its last meeting was signage in that area. I think that was favorably received by the staff, but I would like to ensure that that does proceed, because I think it'll be necessary to be able to properly enforce this ordinance as well. to go ahead and put some signage directing people to parking at the depot. So,
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions or comments on this, but I did want to reiterate something I said last time, which was the possibility of looking at additional crosswalks on Railroad Avenue. I think if we're looking for folks to utilize the existing parking in other areas, like on King Street and Whitmire and at the railroad depot, well, then they're going to be walking to, this particular property that we've talked a lot about, the yard, and they're going to need a way to cross some of those streets safely. So as far as I know, other than the trail crossings, there's no other crosswalks on Railroad Avenue. So I think we need to look at that if we can.
We have our traffic calming team on Wednesday, and that will be on the agenda.
Okay, that's it.
Ms. Holder?
I think my question was answered. I was thinking the last time, are there alternatives for people to park for the spaces that are kind of being taken? And Aaron answered the other part as far as signage to direct people and also to have more crosswalk there. But the signage, would that direct people to new parking, or is it the same parking that they're already using?
It'll direct them to the public parking at the depot.
Okay. Which is kind of parking that they're already using? Is there new additional parking?
No, ma'am. The newest parking there are the 8 or so additional spaces we painted onto the street last year this time. There's been no new parking added since then.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
Yeah, I would just love to reiterate the crosswalk and signage improvements. Is there any opportunity for a collaboration between a private property owner and us in terms of that right-of-way parking, to where we could somehow get parking on there with an agreement between the two parties if we move the Great Wall of Boulders?
Perhaps. One way or the other, it would have to be improved, and so it would be not a free upgrade, not as simple as moving the boulders back.
There's no more free upgrades ever. I think because that area is growing so quickly, I would like to start thinking about other parking opportunities, or at least start kind of brainstorming that, because clearly this is an issue that's not going to get resolved with this. That's all my comments.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, moving on to new business. The first item is the resolution declaring intent to permanently close an unopened public right-of-way by Hendersonville Pediatrics. I believe Mr. Paul Ray, our planning director, is going to present this.
Before Paul starts, I'd like to share an additional piece of information that isn't obvious when you read the agenda here, but is our intention, and that is if this land swap that he's about to describe moves forward, we'll be able to use the extra space that we acquire to improve some of our parking in downtown and perhaps squeeze some additional downtown spaces into this newly enlarged lot.
Okay. Staff has prepared a resolution for council to consider declaring the intent to close a public street in accordance with General Statute 160A 299. The resolution in your packet directs the city clerk to properly advertise for the public hearing as prescribed by law. So this is not the public hearing, this is just the intent to have one. As Mr. Hooper said, Hendersonville Pediatrics is remodeling the former PNC Bank behind us, 90 South Caldwell Street, and has discovered an unopened public right-of-way. Staff in Hendersonville Pediatrics has discussed the closure of the unopened right-of-way in exchange for about the same amount of land on the opposite side adjacent to the city parking lot on Jordan Street. This would allow us to expand our city parking lot potentially and create another row of parking.
All right, so staff is actually looking for a motion to adopt the resolution that instructs the city clerk to begin advertising and the noticing. Do I have a motion for that resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Daniel?
It sounds like a good way to increase our parking and get rid of a piece of land that's kind of useless to us. I would suggest, and I think I've mentioned this before, is that part of any improvements to that lot it needs to go beyond adding spaces. I think it needs to be a more attractive area for folks that are willing to go there, that make them want to go there, so, or help make them want. Nobody wants to walk that far, I don't guess, but doesn't seem. But I would just add that as
Thank
well.
you. Our planner who's spearheading this too has already sketched out a new design for that parking lot to be in compliance with our ordinance and add some landscaping and shade trees.
Good.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, so just for the benefit of the public, do you have the map that you can pull up?
Yes.
Oh,
It should show the spaces.
It's page 61.
61, yeah.
Okay, so the idea here is that what's in red is the unopened right-of-way, correct?
That's correct.
And then in yellow is the area that we would be swapping
Right.
with that.
That's correct.
Okay.
And even though this isn't the public hearing, and we'll get into it in more detail at the public hearing, that there is a sewer line that runs in that unopened right-of-way, which we would have to retain the ownership to that.
The
and
easement,
access
yeah,
and stuff,
okay,
yes.
okay. And it sounds great, it sounds like a great creative way to handle this. I would agree with what Gary said in terms of the attractiveness of the lot, and not just trees to make it look better, but trees and things that make people feel safe, and like that is a legitimate place to park, because as it is, it kind of seems like you might be getting away with something by parking there, and maybe you are. But the other thing is, we want people to be able to use that free parking. And the other thing that would make it more attractive is just a more obvious pedestrian path out of there. So once you've parked your car, there are sidewalks there, but are there ways we can enhance that with maybe, again, some crosswalks or improving the sidewalks there to make it just a little bit more obvious that is a public parking area that we want people to use. And another thing that I've also noticed a lot about that lot is the middle space there, which is sort of, I guess, the driveway area where you pull in and before you actually turn into a space is kind of awkwardly wide. There's more space there than we actually need. But I'm not sure how you would reconfigure that. I'm sure there's smarter people than me that can work on that. But it does seem like with the addition of that space, we can actually, get more than what we're looking at now in terms of the spaces that are there.
The sketch that we have would close part of that entrance off of the street and make it connected with the private parking lot owned by the Hendersonville Pediatric.
Right. Okay, great.
Be better circulation.
Yeah. That's all I have.
okay, Mr. Morrow?
Paul, do you have a sort of an idea of number of spaces? Guesstimate?
I think it was.
It looked like 13 or 14.
Yeah, 13,
Something like that.
sir.
That's amazing, right? Thank you.
Ms. Holder?
I just want clarity with something Aaron was saying, and it just went over my head. Maybe when you said it, Paul, are we adding trees Tell me about the trees.
Well, we would be adding trees. In this idea that we have for reconfiguring the parking lot and expanding the parking lot, we would be adding trees in there.
So, you know, I'll be candid. Trees kind of make me nervous because of safety. And I may be the only one feeling that way, but that's just how I feel about that.
They would be large canopy trees. They wouldn't be super low to the ground. They're to provide shade for the parked cars.
Okay. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
I think everything I thought has been said.
Even the trees?
All right.
Not the trees.
We have a motion to adopt the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. All right, our next item are the proposed amendments to the City of Brevard fee schedule, planning and zoning fees. And, oh, we've got
I'm going to
Emily.
start off, Mayor, if you don't mind.
All right.
So Emily's going to take us through the meat of the presentation, but there are some context-setting comments I want to make. This item has to do with the fee table, which is closely associated with the budget. And since you all deal with the budget as a whole, a committee of the whole, I brought this item directly to you rather than through a committee. Some of the amendments that we're going to ask you to make are simple clarifying amendments, like many of the amendments that the planning department asked us to make. And they're non-controversial, and I hope that you'll pass those tonight no matter what. But there are some policy questions at play here as well that, if you so direct, we will take back through the committee or bring back to this body for further discussion. So most of the, as I said, most of the changes you're going to hear about today are meant to clarify the fee schedule or the fee table. You know, we're asking you to do things like change a fee's name, for example, to be clear on what it's for, or breaking up distinct services that currently are listed together into individual listings to be clear for the user. And we're not going to ask you to change the fee on any of those. In another case, we're going to ask you to take two distinct fees that have two different fee levels now and combine them into one because they are alike in terms of their what they require staff to do. And so we're going to ask you to put those together and reduce one of them. So one fee will go down. But with that said, there are 4 increased fees and 4 new fees. In every case, though, they are all set to be comparable with the nearest comparable fee, excuse me for using that word twice, in the schedule. For example, we're going to ask you to implement a fee for steep slope development. That's a new fee, but it's only because in the last year, we opened up development on steep slopes. We have a similar fee for floodplain development, because when you develop in a floodplain, our planning folks have to do additional work to make sure that your design is safe and so forth. Same with the steep slope. And so we're asking you all to install a steep slope permitting fee that's the same as the floodplain development fee. So that's a new fee, but not really, because it's similar to something we've been doing already. It's kind of the same way with the ETJ modification fee that we're asking you to implement. Before, when someone came and asked to modify the ETJ, we treated it like an annexation. And so now we're going to treat it like a separate fee, the same as the annexation fee, for a similar amount of work. So a new fee, but not really. So of all the changes that we're going to ask you for today, there's only a few where staff made a judgment call that if you all as policymakers want to reconsider, that's your prerogative. The first is we're going to ask you for the first time to implement a $50 chicken permit fee. You know, when you build a chicken coop, we need to make sure that it's safely set back from the other properties, that it complies with other provisions of our code. And just like when we come and measure the setbacks of other accessory structures on a property, we're going to charge you a fee for that of $50. Again, closely comped to a existing comparable fee. We've added a public art application fee for the same reason. Public art is regulated. It's got to meet certain dimensions, material requirements, and so forth. And so it requires staff time to make sure that those permits are, that those applications are reasonable. And so we want to start charging a fee for that. And we are asking that it be set at $100, an amount we think corresponds with the amount of staff time that it takes to review those. Perhaps y'all want to incentivize public art by waiving that fee. If so, I'll ask you to instruct us tonight. In one case, we presumed you wanted to incentivize something, and therefore we set the fee lower than the next comparable fee, and that was the MSD expansion fee. The most comparable fee, existing fee is $500, but we've set that one at $100. But again, if you all have a different idea, please direct us. And then finally, there are fees that we've increased, or that we're proposing be increased, because after some analysis, we discovered that the amount of staff work that was required to responsibly review those fees was more than what the fee was earning us. So for example, a zoning consistency determination. Currently, it's $25. We're asking you to raise that to $50. It takes a couple of hours for us to fulfill those zoning determination requests. And so we want to make sure that we're not subsidizing that cost by having the fee be too low. And by the way, didn't you say it was $150 in Mills River?
Yes.
Emily? So still a better value than some of our neighboring municipalities. Same thing for city road closure. We're asking you to raise that to $250 from $100 because of the amount of staff work that goes in to making sure traffic can still flow and roads can be closed safely. Public alley closures, we're asking you to raise those to $100 from $50. And a temporary use permit, we're asking you to raise that to $200 from $50. And so, again, most of the requests tonight are just for clarifying amendments to the code, but there are some new ordinances new fees that if you'd like for us to take back and review with the committee or make sure that they are set appropriately, we'll be happy to do that at your direction.
I will just add on a little bit to that. He covered most everything, but I just want to emphasize that the planning department has spent the last 2 months since the new budget year really amending our permits, our procedures, and building this new permitting software to ensure that we have more efficiency, but also have a public platform that's easier for users, for the public to be able to get the information about their permits, apply more efficiently online, make online payments, and really be able to interface more efficiently and effectively with us in planning. With over 500 permits processed annually, the permitting software is really vital for us to have efficient operations as a planning department. But this is the first time that we are creating a public portal for the public to be able to access their permit and be able to have that higher quality of service and increased transparency. And this transition aligns with Comprehensive Land Use Plan Action LUH 19, which charges staff with enhancing communication of land use planning efforts, policy development, approvals, and processes. So that is why we have these fee changes. We've really been closely examining all of our different permits, making sure that we are as efficient as possible, while also making sure that we make it as easy for constituents to understand. So partially why we're changing the fee names is to make it more reflective of what the actual permit type is. So with that, we have officially determined that our go live date for our new online software is actually Monday, August 25th. So we're very excited to be doing that. And so we are asking that you take action on the fee changes tonight so that we can get it all loaded up in the system and ready to go by our go live date on Monday. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you may have or talk through anything with you.
All right, council, staff is asking for a vote on the amendments. Do I have a motion to adopt the amendments to the bylaws as proposed?
So moved.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. We'll open discussion. Mr. Daniel.
One thing did sort of jump out at me in Wilson's discussion, and that's the fee for public art. I know that, we just had a downtown master plan committee meeting that discussed public art extensively and the application for that and how that procedure should go. And most of that is being run by volunteers, a volunteer committee of art to analyze each piece of art. And then also, I would suggest, and I would argue, that public art could be considered public service, that they're doing something for the city of Brevard rather than, well, anyway, I would suggest that we not charge a fee for that, or at least not that much, $25. I think, artists, the idea of struggling artists, I think, is a real thing, and charging a fee for someone who is doing probably, again, a service for the city, that I think would be a reasonable request. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
It's funny, Gary, I had the same thought, actually. The one thing on here that I was thinking of waiving or $25 for public art, I think would make a lot of sense. All these, this is a question, although I said it not that way, are non-recurring unless you choose to close the alley down every week with a permit. These are all sort of one-time use
Correct.
events, right? Okay. Yeah, I would agree with the public art. Outside of that, I don't really take issue with these fees, clarifications.
Ms. Holder?
I too put an asterisk beside public art and agree with Gary. I think $25 maybe would be fair. I also highlighted road closure going from 100 to 250 is a huge increase. And also the temporary use fee from 50 to 200.
The temporary use fee is a little bit different because it's actually more in line with, currently in our fee schedule, we have temporary use of $50 and then a number of specific temporary uses that are either $200 or $500. And so, but they all require the same level of review amongst staff. And so we have simplified and consolidated all of that into the temporary use for $200. So it's more about consolidating and making sure that all temporary uses that require the same level of review all have the same permit fee. So most temporary uses right now, like if you were to have a temporary vendor or a farmer's market, those would be $200 right now. So we're just making sure that that's consistent.
So we could meet a happy medium maybe at 100?
We certainly could if that's what you all wanted. Because right now, so the ones that kind of got rolled up into that, temporary use, $50, temporary vendors, $200, carnivals and circuses, $500, and farmers markets, $200.
So I can see the carnival and circuses, which I don't know that we have.
Not yet.
Not yet?
You never know.
So that's kind of a non-issue at this point? Is it?
Right, we're trying to consolidate as much as possible because when you go to our new permitting software, you would still, any of those things would just use a temporary use permit. And so it still requires the same level of review where you require, like, for example, the fire marshal needs to come and inspect a lot of different things. The fire department has to come and inspect things. You have to get a 911 address. There's like a lot more steps in that process than if you were to just do a change of use, for example. And so that's why it's up at $200. But if council, if you all decide you want to make that lower, it certainly could be. It's up to you.
Okay. Thank you for your work.
Mr. Morrow?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for your work. Reviewing is one thing, but upgrading it is a whole nother thing. So I think refining it, you used the word, but that's amazing. It's like welcome to the next century, right? Thank you. And anything that helps for the public to understand it and can see it, and that's a big plus. So lots of stars go your way.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I'll pick up from there and just say thanks. I think it's important for the public to hear that the planning department has an eye towards efficiency and good communication. I think sometimes planning departments get a bad reputation for that. So this is obviously a step in a good direction, and it's a lot of work. So it's, it's not like we're doing this without putting some sweat equity into it. However, I would suggest, in terms of our decision-making up here, that we haven't, there are some pretty significant changes, not in dollar amounts, but, we are changing fees that the public pay, and we have not had an opportunity for the public, other than tonight, to speak on this. And we just received this, I believe, on Thursday. And I'm hearing what Wilson said, that it made sense to bring this directly to council. I agree with that decision. However, I sort of see this as, how we treat public hearings, and that we hear it one meeting, we give some time for the public to digest it, and then we pass it at the next meeting. So I'm a little uncomfortable passing this tonight, because I'd like to give the public an opportunity to comment on this, and I feel like we haven't really given them the proper time to be able to do that. So I would suggest, I would be in favor of maybe tabling this and picking it back up. I know that throws a wrench into the go-live date that you spoke about, Emily, but I think it's important for us to give time to comment. And honestly, if there's somebody that wants to bring a circus to town, and I want to hear from those people, and the chicken people might have some commentary too, so.
Clarifying question there, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Are you recommending we table the whole thing, or may we proceed with the clarifying changes?
Yeah, I think the clarifying changes are fine to move forward with tonight. And I also, I don't know if there's any part of this resolution that would hinder the software actually going forward, because I want to keep the software going and the whole process going. I just think for the fees that are changing, we should give the public an opportunity to comment on that.
Okay, so
So let me make sure I understand.
Did I make
Mr.
that?
Daniel, you made the motion.
Okay.
Do you wish to
I wish to
modify?
amend my motion to approve the clarifying aspects of this resolution and table the fee schedule into our next meeting.
And who did the second on the original?
I did, and I'll second.
Okay, so we have an amended motion and second.
excuse me,
And,
Mayor, may I ask a clarifying question? So I want to read off the fees that won't move forward, or excuse me, the fee changes that won't move forward. I have them, and Emily helped me out, as the steep slope development fee will not move forward, the chicken fee, the public art fee, the zoning consistency determination, the temporary use permit, the closure, city road closure, public alley, and ETJ modification fees. Those were all the ones that were new or different.
Did you list the MSD extension?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the last one, I think.
Pardon, yes, no, I did not, but that would be included
Okay.
in the list that are not passed right now.
Yes.
But they're just tabled till,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Okay, so we've got that clarification. So we have the amended motion and second. We have the clarification of which fees are tabled. So I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the amended motion passes. All right, we will move on to number 4. Number 3 had already been resolved under the consent agenda. And number 4 is the proposed amendments to the Housing Trust Fund bylaws. And Emily is back again.
Yes, I am. So, in light of the county's reappraisal this year, the Housing Committee has considered potential options for property tax relief for low-income households. The Housing Committee did give staff some direction on that, and so we ended up submitting an application to launch a low-income homeowner assistance program through Dogwood Health Trust's recent grant program, Investing in Community Supports for Older Adults, that's designed to ease the financial burden for on those property taxes for low-income households that include at least one member who's 60 years of age and older. And so we are making some strides on that. We've applied for our grant application, but the Housing Committee expressed interest in amending the Housing Trust Fund bylaws to add property tax assistance to the eligible expenses. As you all know, the Housing Trust Fund was established in 2012 and significantly revamped in 2023 as a flexible source of funding that can be used to support a variety of affordable housing activities and initiatives. And so, at the August 12th meeting, the Housing Committee reviewed the proposal and favorably recommended approval. But ultimately, it's really just 2 sentences. One is clarifying that property tax relief and other assistance programs that are deemed by the Housing Committee to advance and maintain home ownership become an eligible expense for the Housing Trust Fund, and a clarification provision that states that there would not be a requirement that housing be designated at that income level for a minimum of 15 years. And those are the 2 changes in the Housing Trust Fund bylaws that are before you today.
Council, do I have a motion to adopt the amendments to the bylaws as proposed?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Daniel?
I have a few questions. I noticed that it says that these allocations will be made by a subcommittee. I don't believe, I'm assuming there hasn't been a subcommittee ever convened by the Housing Committee at this point.
That is currently in the bylaws as a means of distributing funds should funding be available. So basically, the way that it's written in the bylaws is that the council would determine that there's enough funding available to do a round of funding. And then they would have an application process where people could apply and ask for funding. So that would be in that specific case, not an instance where it's a city-initiated project. In that case, an application review subcommittee may be created to assist in reviewing the funding applications. And so that is what we have in our bylaws right now.
Okay, and we've never had the
We've never
funds to
had
do
that,
yes.
but we do have that written in here.
My other question is, I think, obviously, this is, maintaining home ownership is just as important as creating home ownership, I think. And that's the intent of this, I believe.
Yes.
The original intent of the Housing Committee was to create housing. So my question is the funding that's going to be used for the tax relief separate from the funds that are used in the general budget of the Housing Committee.
This, we've applied for grant funding that would be treated completely separately. Unrelated, the Housing Committee wanted to add this to their the eligible expenses of the Housing Trust Fund as another means of potentially being able to support projects in the future. So our grant request was made at the direction of the Housing Committee, and these were two different things that they wanted us to pursue, was funding for a grant project for homeowner assistance, and then separately adding it to the Housing Trust Fund so that if a program becomes available in the future, when there is funding available, that this would be an eligible expense.
I'm not sure you quite answered my question.
At the moment, no Housing Trust Fund dollars are dedicated for this purpose.
Well, I guess the point of my question is, I feel that it is important that there is some distinction in the funding. Both are equally important. I don't deny that. But I just like to feel that, one is, we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of issue where you're using money that could be used to, we have a program for home repair, in the Housing Committee, Housing Plan. Those folks, so I think I've made my point on that. The final thing I'd like to say is that, and I think this is something that we always have to deal with is when we have city initiatives like this, and that is the outreach. And I think that's going to be very important to this. If we are able to find funding for this, we need to make sure that that the folks who need it know that it's available. I know we have a lot of things that we do, but they don't necessarily reach the people that we need it to reach. And so I think that's an important part of this program. It should be. So that's all I have to say.
Ms. Holder?
Thank you for the work. I hear your questions. One thing that we talked about is to make sure that people who need it know about it, and even discuss the possibility of a directory to explain how they can apply an application and making it as easy as possible. And that's important. So thank you for bringing the report, and hopefully we will get people who will be interested in funding. If anybody has any money, we could use it. Thank you.
Mr. Morrow?
It's just interesting, and it's a Correll article in the actual paper Sunday. The Buncombe County's $500 grant program, similar sort of situation for where you could apply for a $500 grant. And since once you're in, you're sort of in. And it's sort of renewable kind of thing. So you might, folks look at that too. Sort of neat idea that they do, for the same reason.
Mr. Wise?
Yeah, I love the idea of this, but I do have a couple of questions or comments. One, I do think the outreach is going to be critical to make sure that the people who are truly in need can find this aid. Some concerns I have, and I'm almost going to have to play the devil's advocate because I actually love this idea, are two-pronged. One is this is an ongoing endeavor, and so we need to work very hard to make sure it continues to move forward. And the last thing I would want is for people getting aid to get cut off because we can't get the funds for it to happen. So I think as part of that communication, we need to make it very clear that what this is. It is not forever, potentially. And it's part of managing expectations, I think. The other piece is I think we're going to have to be very careful and considered about equity. It is likely that everyone who seeks this aid and needs it will not be able to get it. And so I think part of our communication efforts and part of the success of this will be ensuring that the role of equity and how we award these funds is very carefully considered, because I can see how that could disenfranchise some people. So I call them concerns. They're more about parts of this program that I think we just have to be really careful about. And that's all I've got.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I've got some other things to say, but I hear the comments that others have made, and I agree with them. I will say that I think this is in some ways just the first pretty boring step in changing the bylaws, just to allow us to add this potential action into what the Housing Committee has in their toolbox. But there's a lot more things to determine down the line, including things like, where the funding might come from. But I think this is an important first step that allows that work to continue and for us to get more specific on how we might utilize this. I also think I hope the public hears that, there been a lot of discussions at our meetings and other meetings in local government about the tax valuation, and we are responding to that. We are looking for ways to help people that are struggling with a very large jump in tax values in some cases. I also want to say that some of this is we're looking at the tools we currently have from a legal perspective, as we always do, what state law currently allows. But in some ways, we're handicapped by things at the state level. In a lot of ways, we're handicapped by the things at the state level. And one of those things is variable tax rates. And I know the county commissioners have been very supportive of asking the state legislature to change those rules that prohibit municipalities and counties from having variable property tax rates. And I want to thank them for those efforts. I think we have also supported those in letters to our state representatives. And that would be, I think, an easier way to tackle this in some ways. However, we're not waiting for the folks in Raleigh who can sometimes drag their feet, and maybe always drag their feet. We're going to do what we can now. And I want to thank Emily and the staff for looking at that grant opportunity with Dogwood, because if we get it, I think it is a good test case for how we might run this as a city going forward. Now, more generally, I do think that we're at a point, and I've said this before with our housing efforts, that we do need to look at our sources of funding. And 4 years ago, we agreed to put 2 cents on the tax rate towards housing, and we've done amazing things and are continuing to do great things with that money. However, with actions we've taken with Fairhaven Meadows and the Azalea Avenue property, we've kind of utilized those 2 cents. And so are there other ways that we can look at, we just talked about the fee schedule. Are there things there that we can investigate? Are there other ways of improving the resources that we have to help out with things like this? So I hope that, I hope we get the grant, first of all, but I hope we don't stop there when we're looking for funding methods for the housing community.
All right, I think I covered everybody for comments. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, that is the last item of new business, and we're going to move on to remarks. And We will start with Councilwoman Holder.
Wow. I'm sitting here thinking about Mr. Chapman's remarks, and I don't know who said it. It does not represent my feelings, and I'm sorry that it happened. I was sitting here thinking my grandfather would have been 125 years old today. Had he continued to live. But it also made me think about how life is short. And 125 years seems like a long time. And none of us will probably live that long. But it just inspires me to do more as much as I can with the little short time that I have. And I hope we'll all be inspired to do that to help others. That's all.
Mr. Wise.
Outside of my typical response of thanking everyone who came and talked to us, that's so important, I have no comments. I know. I want to be home by 7.
Mr. Morrow. Okay. Mr. Baker.
Yeah, a couple things. This came up at a committee meeting, can't remember which one it was, but with the Mills Avenue closure continuing, and I don't know if we have an update on that, and we may not want to get into it tonight, but.
I'll send you something on Friday.
Okay. But that, that is pretty disruptive for that part of the city, and an idea came up about, there's a connection that's closed down to vehicle traffic between North Lane and the very appropriately named Locks Drive. And I wonder if that could be opened up, even if temporarily, for folks that want to get through a little easier. And I don't know, that for that to be permanent, we would definitely want to check with the people that live in that area and get their feedback. But it was just an interesting idea that I heard and wanted to bring it forward. Another thing that I wanted to bring up again is we've talked, I think about a year ago, about having a strategy meeting surrounding the Acosta Trail, and not just on the trail itself, but really how the city positions itself with land use planning or other things that we might need to consider to take full advantage of the trail as it's coming to reality. And finally, I'll respond to Mr. Chapman's comments. That was a post that I got a lot of attention, obviously. And I did agree with the comment from another person who commented. And I said that I 100% agreed. I regret that I said I 100% agree. I would say that I 99% agree, and the 1% I don't agree with is the use of the word corruption, because that does have a very specific meaning. And I don't agree with the use of that word, and so I regret saying 100%. However, I do think that talking about keyboard warriors is something that maybe I get accused of a lot. And I'll say that I don't think that we should be afraid of talking about issues that matter to our constituents. Now, we need to talk, and I just owned up to a mistake that I made. We need to talk in a civil manner and be able to disagree honorably with one another. But I take umbrage at being called a keyboard warrior, because I've served on this board for 4 years, and I've worked hard to help this city and this county. And on many occasions, I have complimented Mr. Chapman on how hard he works, because I know he works hard, and we disagree on many things. But I have never once acted as if he doesn't work as hard as he possibly can for the county, because I see it every time he's out there. And, you know, the idea that I'm a keyboard warrior and that I don't put in a full effort to improve the lives of our citizens is pretty offensive to me. So I'm not going to apologize for talking about issues that matter to the public. I'm not going to apologize for having an open discussion on social media or with whatever tool is available to us. I'm going to continue to make sure that those discussions on my side are fact-based and positive whenever they can be. But, you know, these new tools that we have, they're not new anymore. I mean, social media has been around for a very long time. And they do allow us to communicate with the public in a way that we didn't always have the opportunity to. One of the things in that same thread that came up was, you know, I got to interact with the wrestling coach at Brevard High. And someone I've never met before. And learned some things about some concerns I had as a county resident and as a father of somebody, my son, who goes to public school here, that I think should be concerning to the county commissioners. So I hope, as they're obviously taking the time to read through those threads and comments, that they would also put some effort into hearing from their constituents that comment on that thread, which brought up some pretty concerning things related to the funding that is being asked for by our county manager, and so I hope that they get investigated. That's all I have.
Daniel?
Yeah, I would like to reinforce one thing that Mr. Baker said about the acoustic trail. I as well would like to see us not lose our focus on how we're going to be addressing the impact of that in the future. The other thing I'd like to say is that I'm always impressed by not only our staff, but our council, of our creativity and compassion as we work on the city of Brevard. And I think it's something that guides us. The compassion and the creativity I think is evident in some of the things that we've been able to achieve with the resources that we have. So I'd just like to say that. Thanks.
Mr. Attorney?
Yes, I just wanted to mention one thing. Mr. Veal came back again tonight to speak, and he handed out he didn't give me one of his packages of information. That's probably because I've been investigating this for well over a year. When he first came to the city, I'm well informed about the instance he wants to bring to the city. I think I'm not sure what his concern is. I'm more than happy to explain it to you and take out all the paperwork from 15 years ago and discuss and bring to your attention what he's talking about. But it certainly doesn't have anything to do with landlocking 6 pieces of property. It has to do with putting in place one of the crown jewels of our park system, which is the Bracken Preserve, and attempting to negotiate with the residents and getting no interaction and having to pursue, unfortunately, having to pursue an action in court to get access to the Bracken Preserve. But I'm more than happy to explain to you, more than happy to explain to him again. I'm sorry he didn't mention my name as one of the people who's spoken to him. I think he didn't like talking to me so much. But anyway, I just want to let you know that comment from the public had not been ignored. He's been addressed, and I'm more than happy to speak to him or anyone he sent on his behalf again, or to any of y'all about any concerns at any point.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Madam Clerk.
Amen.
Mr. Manager.
Yes, I've got two things. The first is in response to a constituent comment from earlier about City Camper. I just wanted to let everyone know that we have sent City Camper last week a notice of violation for his overgrown grass, and we're planning on sending out his abatement notice this week. And of course, when you are talking about code enforcement, things like that, after the notices have been issued, the property owner has a period where they are allowed to comply. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, 30 days or something.
30 days.
30 days. And our plan is to, on day 31, go out and remediate that property ourselves. And of course, put the expense of remediation onto a lien that whoever eventually buys that property will have to satisfy. So Harvey, I'm with you, man. And hopefully that property will be cleaned up either by him or by us sometime soon. And then the second thing I wanted to share with the council is that I got a report from our police chief recruitment firm today. We have around 25 qualified applicants for the position already. And they tell me that on initial review, it's a very encouraging pool of applicants for that position. And so I'm confident we're going to be able to find someone talented to join our team here in the months to come.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Great news on both of those. Just a couple of comments. I just wanted to bring up, we continue to work on the housing situation here. It has been a priority for this elected body for the last 3 years, our top priority. And, as you've noticed, we keep making progress. We had the opening for Fairhaven Meadows that many of us were with on August 5th, the first affordable apartment complex to break ground in over 13 years here in the city. Last week, I went to the celebration with Mountain Glen Apartments, which was a affordable apartment complex that was built in, I believe it's 1983. And they just finished a $4 million renovation of those apartments. So again, making them pretty much like new. It's not just creating new housing, it's preserving the housing that we have. And it's sort of a dual track. It's multi pathways, actually. Then we had this Saturday, I was at Habitat for Humanity, and they opened their new duplex that they just built with 2 families moving in, and they have already started work on a quadruplex here in town. Every small step forward makes a difference. And when you start adding in all of these initiatives that we as a city are doing, that our partners, both our nonprofit partners like Habitat for Humanity, Housing Assistance Corporation, but also the for-profit partners, the management and development companies that are out building some of this. And then we have the initiative to try and really keep people in their homes with our property tax assistance program. So all of these pieces really work together and show, I believe, the absolute dedication of this elected body to trying and solve the housing problem. And we are making progress, but it is not a fast or an immediate solution. So just to put it in perspective, all of those pieces fit together, and we're going to continue to work. We have 2 more projects that the city has initiated that are moving forward, and our partners continue to work and move forward with this. So I look forward to seeing more good news on the affordable housing front, as we continue to move along. In terms of, there were some comments about Constitution Week. And I just want to mention that Constitution Week is coming up, and we are entering into we are now in the 250th birthday of our country. And we have a joint committee. The county and the city have a 250th birthday committee I've been on it for the last year. It is chaired by the county, who has the head of the Historical Preservation Committee, chairs it. And we have multiple events planned throughout this year, including during Constitution Week. We're going to have a batch of things, but throughout the entire year, culminating next year on the 4th of July, when we're going to have quite a celebration, because the city and the county are united in our respect and our endorsement of what our founding fathers stood for. And we look forward to celebrating with all of Brevard and Transylvania County. So there's a lot going on with Constitution Week, and I believe there's going to be an article in the paper sometime very soon with all the different things, and some of it's some really fun stuff for the kids. So make sure you pay attention with what we're doing with that. I just want to also commend the staff. You know, we are constantly streamlining our processes and working on transparency. And I love the new portal that they are putting in place. And the feedback that I get from developers, in fact, feedback I got when I was out at Mountain Glen talking with the developers last week, was how wonderful it is to work with the staff. And that is the kind of feedback that our professionals get. So thank you very much for all of those efforts. I also want to mention that next week on Tuesday, I have my Meet the Mayor. Oh, we got everything under control here? All is okay? Okay?
Yes, I think all's okay.
Oh, okay. Meet the Mayor. You know, communication, open, civil communication is critical. And I hold a meeting every single month. I think this is like the 45th Meet the Mayor, where I am available for face-to-face discussions with anyone on any topic here in Brevard, Transylvania County. And I just encourage people to take advantage of it. There is nothing better than seeing people face-to-face. Yes, we have all this new technology, but you get a much better feel when you are sitting in a room and you can relate to the person with more than just typing into a platform. So I encourage people, take advantage of the accessibility that I make for myself. The manager is out there once a month holding a session. Take advantage of these face-to-face sessions. But yes, communication is important, and all the communication. I have never had a Meet the Mayor when it was not a civil, productive conversation. I will just put it that way. Not always in agreement with everything, but it is always, and I think even some of my friends sitting here would agree, it is always a civil conversation even when we don't agree. But that is next week. And finally, I just want to say, one of the things on the consent agenda was the HCA settlement. And healthcare is so important to our community. It is something that I have personally fought for 4 years now. And making sure that we have accessible, high quality, and affordable healthcare has been my goal for years. And so I was very pleased with a settlement that guarantees an additional 3 years on the length of our hospital that is accessible health care here in our county. Of course, we're going to keep working to make sure nothing happens at the end of those, well, now 13-year period, and that it continues even further, but that was good news. Affordable health care. The charity care, the $1 million fund for charity care, helps with equity. It helps with affordability for health care for people who cannot afford it. So again, it meets one of those very, very important qualifications. And there are a number of other things in there, including a goal that we've had for a long time, which is to open up adult daycare here in our county again. And this is a step forward with HCA agreeing to look for space where we can have adult daycare. So all of this is a great benefit to our community, because if you don't have health and you don't have access and you can't afford to have health care, then you don't have quality of life. And a lot of the other things that we do don't really matter. So it's very, very important, and I am very glad to see that we have the settlement and that Brevard worked very hard to get to the point where we are right now. And we will continue to prioritize healthcare for our community. And we actually have no closed session tonight. So at this point, I am simply going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Mayor, I want to thank you for your staff meeting with our staff.